Hi everyone, my name is Zara Farouk and I'm here with my co-host Divya Rajan, and today we will be hosting the first ever Embassy of India Student Hub International Day of Yoga celebration. And I will hand it over to Divya to tell you a little bit more about what today will look like.
Thank you, Zara, and thank you for joining us. We have 4 wonderful guests joining us today to share their fascinating stories and inspire us to do yoga. We have with us Rajshree Jayram Ferns, who's going to be speaking about rewiring the brain. We have Rohan Shroff, who's going to share his personal story of transformation through yoga with us. We have a very young teacher, Anjali Mehta from Singapore, who is going to talk about the importance of breath work. And we have Pratibha Agarwal, who's going to be answering some of your questions, and we'll be talking about considering yoga as a career. So, without further ado, let's join our guests, listen to their fascinating stories, and be inspired by them.
I'd like to welcome Rohan Shroff. Rohan is a yoga instructor at My Yoga Teacher. Yoga gave Rohan the faith to believe in a higher reality and recognize the truth in the scriptures. His relatives and friends don't recognize him anymore because his life took a 360-degree turn and his bad habits and vices were gone for good. Yoga gave him a firm determination to never go back and suffer. He never thought he would be doing headstands and teaching philosophy to students from all across the globe at the Yoga Institute for TTC. And today he's pursuing a master's in yoga to continue his teaching. We are super excited to hear more about Rohan's story, and we'll hand it over to him to tell you more and educate you on the topic of yoga and how it impacted his life.
Namaste everyone, my name is Rohan, and on this occasion of International Day of Yoga 2020, I have got this opportunity to share my experience with the Indian Embassy, students, practitioners, and I'm really happy to share this. Anxiety, stress. Basically, yoga is all about life management, how we can work through this philosophy. And all this is because I have suffered so much in my life because of the accidents that I had since childhood. I was a very naughty kid, and I had some major accidents, which actually prevented me from sitting in simple cross-leg positions for so long. And now things have changed drastically. There was a time when my family doctor said that you cannot ride bike, you cannot sit on the floor, on the hard floor, you cannot drive, because the pain was unbearable in my tailbone. I have my tailbone is dislocated; it cannot be rectified. But here I am riding bike every single day, sitting on the floor for many hours, and practicing asanas. Where I couldn't sit in crossed leg, I can practice. I can do headstands now, and that is why it is very interesting. I like to work with all those who are struggling with all these problems like flexibility and any other health conditions, because I have been very patient and persistent with my practice. I did it very slowly. I was focused. I got some very good teachers and colleagues and friends who helped me throughout. And so that is why I understand that pain. And it's not only just asanas that help. There are kriyas, which are cleansing processes, pranayam, breathing exercises, meditation. So these things have been supporting all throughout. And of course, not to forget the philosophy of yoga, which is not talking about renouncing the world. It is not about going in the forest and living. It is all about being in the society and how you can still deal with all the stresses. So one thing that I realized on this path is when I was introduced to yoga, where I actually thought of giving up after a week or 10 days. I thought this is not my cup of tea. I cannot do this. But I just kept going on. There were some people who really motivated me. My wife, for an example, she had done this course, basic teachers training course, and she said that it's a wonderful thing. And my reason also was not my reasons were not about health that I got into yoga. My reasons were because I was moving to U.S. Yes, I stayed there for about a year in Midwest, and I thought that what will will I do if I go there? I just have bachelor's in commerce degree. If I want to earn some money, how will I survive? So that was my reason to get into yoga. Little did I know that it's going to change my entire life. It's going to transform me into a different person. One thing that I realized after getting into yoga and what some senior teachers, gurus, they have spoken about is that we all human beings, we have a purpose. Until then, I didn't know what the purpose was because I was living a very selfish life only for myself. I was just giving into all my senses, whether it was drinking, smoking, or anything else, eating, sleeping. But I realized that it's more than that. The purpose of life is to grow internally, spiritually, and do all these things, all your duties in life that you are doing, taking care of yourself, your family, your friends, your nation, your society, and at the same time growing internally so that we can reach to that highest point where there are no disturbances. We are going to practice. The first thing that we are going to do is called Kapal Bhati. Kapal means forehead and Bhati means shining. We are going to practice a few rounds of Kapal Bhati. I will demonstrate one and then we can all practice together. You can practice 3 to 5 rounds. Each round can be anywhere between 10 to 20 and then gradually you increase the counts. Alright, so how we practice is this. And then you breathe normally. So the reason I'm placing the palm over here is so that I can feel the movement. So focus is on forceful exhalation and your abdomen. Inhalation is passive, it will happen on its own. Let's try all together. The best way to practice Kapal Bhati and some pranayams will be closing the eyes and doing it. So for now, you can keep your eyes open if you are following me. But when you're practicing on your own, you can close your eyes. Let's try second round. Second round. So you can do about 3 to 5 rounds. And as I said, 10 to 15 to 20 cycles in each one. Next one is called Kapala Randra Dhoti and Karna Randra Dhoti. Randra means passage or sinuses and Dhoti means washing. This is a very basic practice. Everyone should do it. It will rejuvenate you instantly. So how do we do this is by placing thumbs on the forehead, very gently, not pressing hard, and then massaging with the fingers. Okay, you can do this 5 to 10 times. Then you pinch your eyebrows. Five to 10 times. Then there are sinus points over here. So you can massage these points like this. Five to 10 times. This is a brilliant practice. It helps in skin tightening, bringing glow on the face. And then some accessories to it would be like index and middle fingers around the ears. Like this. Then on the neck. and on the mouth. And lastly, Karna Randra Dhoti. It is said that you should not use earbuds. Rather, use your index fingers or little fingers and insert them in your ears and then just do this movement and wash it. So whatever is the dirt is there in the external parts, you can just remove it. This was Kapala Randra Dhoti, Karna Randra Dhoti. Now next one is we are going to practice a pranayam which is the king of all pranayams. It's called Anulom Vilom or Nadi Shodhan. Anulom Vilom means alternate nostril breathing. There is a lot of coordination in this. So it is basically a pranayam which means regulating the bioenergy through breathing. This is also a concentration exercise and it is also meditation. You will see how. So there is a ratio of 2-4-2-2. 4 is for retention and 2 is for inhalation, exhalation, suspension. Retention means holding the breath inside the body and suspension means exhaling the breath and then not breathing in. So that phase is called suspension. How do we do this is by making a mudra, Nasika mudra. You bend your index and middle fingers and you block your left nostril with ring finger, thumb blocks right nostril. If this is difficult, you can place your fingers like this and you can still do it. So just have a look at the first round and then we can all practice together. All right. So you start with suspension of 2 counts. Suspend. 1, 2. Inhale right. 1, 2. Retain. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale left. 1, 2. Inhale left. 1, 2. Retain. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale right. 1, 2. Suspend. 1, 2. Inhale left. 1, 2. Retain. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale right. 1, 2. Inhale right. 1, 2. Retain. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale left. 1, 2. Suspend. 1, 2. And breathe normally. So after every round, you should take a break, maybe few breaths, 3 to 5 breaths, and then start again. 5 rounds as a beginner is good enough. Let's try 1 round together. Best way to do it is with closed eyes. So we can start together. Suspend. 1, 2. Inhale right. 1, 2. Retain. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale left. 1, 2. Inhale left. 1, 2. Retain. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale right. 1, 2. Suspend. 1, 2. Inhale left. 1, 2. Retain. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale right. 1, 2. Inhale right. 1, 2. Retain. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale left. 1, 2. Suspend. 1, 2. And release. So this is how we practice Anulom Vilom. You can practice 5 rounds looking at this video. And also you can please join me, join for first 5 free sessions on MYT. You can always come for one-on-one sessions or you can attend my group classes where I'm talking about all these practices in detail with limitations and contraindications so that you know if you are or anyone you know is suffering from any of the limitations, contraindications should avoid practicing these things. So the last practice for today is called Brahmari. Brahmari is bumblebee or Indian bee or humming bee. So this is a balancing pranayam and this is where you focus on prolonged exhalation and while exhaling you make a loud sound like bumblebee. This is very good before going to sleep. Best time in the morning or before you go to bed. You will see a lot of positive effects with this. So how do we do this is by taking a mudra called Yoni Mudra or Shanmukhi Mudra. You block your ears with thumbs. You block your eyes with index fingers. With your middle fingers, you block your nose. Not to press hard, this just symbolizes. Ring fingers on your upper lip, little fingers on your chin. So have a look how we do this. You inhale first. Then you inhale deeply and again exhaling you do this. If this is difficult, you can place your index fingers or you can do it without the mudra also by closing your eyes. But this will give you a lot of benefits if you close your senses. This is also meditation, pranayam and meditation, both in one. So let's try one round all together and then you can practice, keep on practicing at least 5 rounds daily. So close your senses, thumbs on the ears, index fingers on eyelashes, middle fingers on nose, ring fingers on upper lip, little fingers on the chin. Inhale deeply and end with rubbing your palms, cupping your eyes. Feel the warmth and slowly inside your palms open your eyes and release your posture. Dhanyavad. Thank you.
Our next guest speaker is named Rajshree Jayram Ferns. Rajshree is a certified yoga and meditation instructor and has been teaching yoga for the past 4 years and is particularly fascinated by the science of yoga and how it deeply stimulates the brain and other critical organs in our body. It has been her endeavor to teach yoga beyond its physical benefits to the body and to look at yoga as a technique and a tool to improve overall well-being. So Rajshree will be talking to us about how yoga impacts the brain and mental health, and we are so excited to hear more from her.
Thank you for this lovely, warm introduction. I'm honored to be given this opportunity. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the science of yoga. When you learn to drive a car for the first time, or when you learn a new language for the first time, you establish a new connection in your brain. You establish a new neural pathway in your brain. And when you practice driving, or when you practice a new language every single day of your life for over a period of time, you sort of cement this connection and you change the structure of your brain. You have rewired your brain with a new neural pathway. This phenomena is called neuroplasticity. Unfortunately, you do the same with a bad habit like smoking, drinking, or negative self-talk, etc. When your response to external stress environment is almost always anger, anxiety, panic, or negative self-talk, you rewire your brain in the most damaging way possible. This will never serve you, and this may never leave your system. This is not good for you. Now take a moment to observe your breath. Most of us breathe unconsciously. Observe your breath when you're angry. It's usually short and rapid. However, when you practice yoga, you train your mind to focus on your breaths. The moment you change the way you breathe, your response to the stressful environment or situations also changes. With constant practice, you can apply the principle of deep breathing to react to or respond to any stressful situation in your life. When you practice yoga regularly, you create new neural pathways to change the old patterns, the old conditionings of your brain. You rewire your brain to change the way it responds to stress or external stressful environments, which I'm sure you would all agree is the need of the hour right now. Coming back to yoga, there are three fundamental principles of yoga. The first one is your focus on the breath. Second, your focus on the present moment to remain in the now. And the third is the alignment of your spine, especially when you perform the physical yogic poses. When you practice yoga incorporating these three fundamental principles, it changes the blood chemistry in your body. It slows down your breathing, it slows down your heart rate, it relaxes your central nervous system, it stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system, which in turn stimulates your endocrine glands. As a result of all these changes, your brain receives ample blood supply and oxygen. That's when your brain starts releasing happy hormones like melatonin, dopamine, serotonin, melatonin, etc.
So get ready to do some breath work with Anjali Mehta. Anjali, a rising junior at NYU, is a certified 500-hour yoga instructor teaching Ashtanga, Vinyasa, Hatha, and Yin Yoga. She is also certified in both MBSR and yoga therapy. Anjali has been practicing yoga for over 10 years and been teaching for close to 6 years. In the past, she has taught for the Indian Embassy in Singapore, Vyasa Yoga, Singapore American School, and the Institute for Mental Health. Currently, she lives in New York, where she teaches weekly classes at NYU. Her classes center around breathwork, where she encourages students to find a balance and alignment on and off on their mats. She also delivered a TEDx talk in 2017 on the power of breath. Anjali intends to pursue a PhD in clinical psychology in order to investigate the inner workings of the mind. Currently, she's investigating the overlap between cognitive neuropsychology and meditation. With gratitude, she thanks her yoga teachers, students, and parents for guiding her towards the path of yoga. So let's join Anjali for some breath work.
As a child, I was exposed to yoga and meditation by my parents, who were and still are disciplined practitioners of yoga. I did not like yoga at all. In fact, I hated it because I found it too difficult to sit still even for just a couple of minutes. But my parents saw the frustrated and anxious teenager in me and enrolled me in a yoga teacher training program. I walked into that classroom as an irritable, anxious, naive 14-year-old girl, and I walked out as a yoga instructor. Today, I am a certified 500-hour advanced yoga instructor and yoga therapist, and I have Vyasa Yoga and my parents to thank for it. I fell in love with yoga that day, and every time I've rolled out my mat since then, I fall in love with yoga all over again. The reason I was so cynical about yoga as a child was because the meaning and process of it always seemed fuzzy and unclear. It was only once I began to understand the logic behind yoga that I started to realize the simplicity and the magnitude of its benefits. The literal translation of yoga is the union of the mind and the body. It is not some mystical activity as I once thought. It is simply a method to tame the mind using the mechanisms of the body. During my first year at NYU, trying to navigate the perils of freshman 15 and the culture shock of New York City's subway system, it was yoga that kept me grounded and stable. My mind was running at 100 miles an hour, thinking, overthinking, ruminating on a bad test score, being distracted by online shopping. And in fact, we as human beings, we spend around 47% of our time thinking about things other than our current state. In other words, we spend 47% of our time ruminating on the past or daydreaming about the future. Yoga simply guides us to the present by shifting our attention to the breath or the body. And while our minds are 200 miles ahead, our body is in the present, beating, breathing, and working. Thinking is, of course, an important cognitive component of being human. Today, however, it seems to be our own worst enemy. Thinking is the process of considering or reasoning about something. With it, we have the ability to not only reflect on the past to make judgments about the future, but also the ability to make certain predictions about the future based solely on our perception of any situation we find ourselves in. Evolution gifted our ancestors with the stress response to survive threats like wild bears. Today, even though the threats like being attacked by a tiger in the middle of the night have considerably decreased, the activation of this stress response has gone up. This is due to the fact that the stress response reacts to perceived threats. And today, a perceived threat can be anything from a late Uber to the lack of Wi-Fi. Virtually anything at all can instantly trigger this massive stress response, which reacts the exact same way, regardless of whether you feel threatened by a cockroach or a dark alleyway. Today, thinking and perceiving triggers the stress response for non-threats and ultimately causing mental pain, stress, and anxiety. Anxiety, for instance, is a perceived inability to deal with the task. For example, confronted with a long to-do list, we may feel incompetent in completing it. A deadline for an exam may induce anxiety because we may feel as if we can't study for it in time. Thinking about the future may induce anxiety. And when we ruminate or dwell on the past, like our old Facebook posts or impulsive decisions we made a few years ago, may induce worry or regret. Triggering the stress response in this way too often in these inapplicable situations may not only lead to a whole heap of physiological issues, but also a multitude of psychological ones. So how can we control our minds from going haywire and spiraling out of control? The only voluntary body function which changes as a result of the stress response is our breath. When you breathe deeply, it encourages full oxygen exchange, slowing down the heartbeat, stabilizing blood pressure, essentially inducing the relaxation response. More importantly, becoming aware of the breath and shifting your attention to your breath may stop your mind from spiraling out of control. But the reason why physical yoga and meditation are so effective is not just because they shift our attention, but because they train us to maintain this attention whenever and wherever we want. Asanas are not easy, and they're not supposed to be. In fact, yoga asanas are supposed to be uncomfortable. Yoga is a practice of discomfort, forcing us into stressful positions so that when we can train ourselves to breathe through the pain, and we can teach ourselves to not be stressed out in this situation, which most definitely does not require us to be stressed out. Yoga teaches us that we can be calm, standing on our head, so that when life turns us upside down, when your train is running late, or you didn't get the job you wanted, you can still be calm and your mind won't run wild. Meditation works in a similar way. Meditation helps us focus on a singular stimulus for a length of time, increasing our ability to maintain attention and teaching us a way to deal and cope with stress in a sustainable manner. It strengthens certain neural networks using the brain's plasticity to its advantage, and we practice it so that when the time comes and we're stressed out before an exam or a presentation, we can use this technique to help calm ourselves down. In this way, practicing yoga and meditation actually has proven over and over again to help us become more capable to deal with stressful situations, building psychological resilience. Every day, there's a choice we make to either be affected by the inevitable negative consequences of living a life, or we can choose to build resilience and cope with stress in a more sustainable way. Thank you.
Cat-cow is both a breathing exercise and a yoga asana. Start by coming onto your hands and knees. Inhale and arc your back upwards, stretching your lower back. And exhale, curl your back inwards. Inhale and stretch up, look up to the sky. And exhale, curl inwards. Feel free to go at your own pace, synchronizing your body with your breath. Take deep breaths in and out. Continue at your own pace, allowing your body to relax as you breathe, maintaining awareness on your breath. And come back to a neutral position.
And our last guest for today is Pratibha Agarwal. Pratibha is a certified power yoga teacher practicing yoga since a very early age. She is recognized as one of India's few registered yoga teachers by Yoga Alliance U.S.A. Having been trained under masters from US and India with a long and in-depth association with yoga, she has been able to incorporate a lot of variety in her class, keeping the essence of yoga an aspect that her students look forward to. Pratibha has successfully conducted various yoga classes and workshops in various parts of India. She also focuses on the principles of yoga, which focuses on relaxing the body and the breath, which in turn helps to relax the mind. This appeals to all who seek yoga as a stress buster and general well-being. He believes that a true celebrity is one who celebrates each and every moment of life, and that is possible if you are in tune with the present, and this tuning comes through the practice of yoga. Let's join Pratibha as she answers some queries and also talks about considering yoga as a career option. Hey Pratibha, thank you so much for joining us for the International Yoga Day 2020 India Student Hub event. You have a fascinating and inspiring personal story. You have embraced where you come from, your traditions, your culture. You told us that you were always happy and contented with what you have, and yet there was something so much deeper that you were seeking for. Can you share this really inspiring story with our young minds?
So much, Divya. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm really happy to be addressing the audience. Well, my story. So yeah, I was happily married and blessed with 2 kids, nice, good Indian joint family, and everything was going right, and I was in a very content and happy space. But there was this something which was always sort of, my little voice inside me would always tell me or nudge me that there is something else that I'm seeking. But I did not really know what I was seeking. And then after my pregnancy and being happy, contented Indian mother and wife, I was sort of somewhere neglecting my own health. And then one fine day I realized that I need to do something about my health. And that's when I enrolled myself into a nearby yoga school. And then whenever I used to do yoga, there was something which I would find very, very satisfying, something which made me feel very happy and blissful. And I could never pinpoint what it was. And then when I went and asked the teacher, she sort of did not really have the answer. And that is when I wanted to seek, to understand, to know that I had everything that I wished for and I wanted around me. But when and as I started going to my yoga classes, there was this a very deep kind of a happiness and contentment which I found, and I wanted to know what it was.
And that is when I enrolled myself into a teacher training so that I could understand that whatever I was doing, why I was doing it, what was happening, and what was it that was impacting me in such a big way. And that is where it all started. That is where the journey started.
That's amazing. So would you say, reflecting now, that yoga changed your life for the better?
Totally and entirely. I've got meaning to my life. I feel every day when I wake up, I feel motivated. I look forward to the day. And it's only because there is yoga in my life. It's been 11 years that I've been teaching yoga, learning and teaching yoga. But fortunately, never one single day when I don't want to come on my mat to do my own practice or to teach. Because while teaching, I get to learn so much. So it has totally changed my life for sure, Zara.
That's amazing to hear. And what would you say to the viewers who perhaps sometimes have bad days or days where they're less motivated to, get out their yoga mat? Have you ever experienced days like that where you had to really struggle with yourself to get that exercise and meditation?
Yeah, so it's not every day that my body wants to do the yoga asanas. But we have to understand that yoga is not only asana. That is only the tip of the iceberg. So yoga in itself, it is Ashtanga yoga, 8 limbs. So the days you don't want to do any physical practice, but still, I would definitely come on the mat, do some breathing, do some meditation, because I would cater to the needs of my body. And that's a mood lifter. When you just do pranayama and you do meditation, it's a mood lifter. But then to really feel that your mood is getting lifted, you have to first connect to the breath. It's like you're having a friend, okay? So if you go to a stranger and you talk to a stranger, that might not leave you in a very good space. But if you have a friend with whom you have a constant relationship, whether you're speaking every day or not, but somewhere there's a constant relationship maintained, and on the days when you don't have the best mood, but you pick up the phone and you speak to your friend and your mood is lifted. It's like that. So definitely, if you don't feel like doing asanas, there are other aspects of yoga that you can practice. And that's what is helping me to come to the mat every single day, no matter how my mood is or how I'm experiencing in my body.
Amazing. And you mentioned that you come from, you married into a joint family. It was very traditional. How did your family react? How did your husband react to, you choosing yoga?
That's a very, very interesting, I don't know whether I should be sharing or not, but my very first class of yoga, and that was after 15 years of my marriage. So my very first class of yoga that I went in a sari. Not that my family would have objected, but it was traditional to wear sari, and I did not want to sort of put them in a spot or put myself in a spot. So I went to my very first class in a sari. Of course, underneath I was wearing a salwar, and I did my first yoga class in a sari. And from then on to now, it's been quite a transformation, quite an interesting journey.
That is so inspiring. That is so inspiring. And I'm sure that everyone watching would love to learn more about perhaps how to simplify yoga, how to break it down and have it be less of a daunting practice. So do you have any beginner's tips for someone that's looking to get into it?
Yeah, so a lot of people, they tell me, the first thing that they tell me is, we don't have time. We don't have 1 hour time to do yoga. You don't need 1 hour to do yoga. Even if you have 20 minutes or 25 minutes and you can come on the mat, that is more than enough. What is required is the discipline and the commitment. If you really want to get results from yoga, and it's not only physical, as I told you, it can really change your life. It can help you to be a better version of yourself. But for that discipline and commitment is needed. So just be committed for 20-25 minutes to start with, to be on the mat. And then from there, it will just take off. It'll happen.
Okay. So, and to commemorate this day, International Day of Yoga, we've had a range of students who are studying in the United States at the moment, Indian students who have questions about yoga. And you mentioned mental and physical health and how both are tied to yoga. So one of our viewers asks how to be healthy internally and physically in this time of this pandemic when not many can leave their homes.
Right. So one thing about yoga is you don't need any equipment. You don't need any special kind of infrastructure. You can do it wherever you are. All that you need is a yoga mat. Even if you don't have a yoga mat, anything on the surface which can be put on the floor and your own body and your complete awareness to what you're doing. That is all that is required for yoga. So even in this pandemic or when there was a lockdown, if people could not go out and run or could not go to the gym, yoga really came handy because this was something which you could do it in the confines of your home. And secondly, why yoga is very, very important, especially now in this pandemic, in these troubled times, because each one of us are stressed. Either we are looking at the future or there are some things which we are trying to resolve from the past. Yoga is one tool which brings you to the present. Why do I say that? Because even while you're doing asanas, the main aspect of doing yoga or to really call any body movement an asana is your awareness to the breath or the connection between the breath and the body. Can you ever see or follow the breath of the past of the future? No. You can only focus of the present of the breath, which is of the present. So through the breath, it brings you into the present moment. So you just start looking at each day at a time instead of worrying about the future, instead of worrying what it's going to be in the future, whether you will be able to complete your studies as a student, whether you will get a job as a student because of the situation around. So what you do is you empower yourself to be in the present moment, live the day, live the present moment so that you have more clarity and more, there's no clutter in your mind. When you're thinking about the future and the past too much, there's a lot of clutter. So that clarity sets in, and that is how and when yoga can come and become a beautiful tool, not only in today's time, but any time whenever you're stressed, because it will help you to bring back to the present moment.
Thank you, Pratibha. That brings us to our next question, which is very pertinent because in considering the current situation, people are confined to their houses and there is a lot of things available online. There are a lot of videos being done, but again, that kind of following of yoga is very one way, wherein we watch videos, but then we are not really getting any feedback. And one of our students has asked just that, saying that they have been doing self-taught yoga for quite some time now. And despite how carefully we tend to listen and practice, there could potentially be some scope for the betterment of postures and other basics. But how bad will the consequences be due to unattained perfections, if any?
It's like you have a car and you have the roads, okay? And you also know your goal or your destination. But what is missing is the navigation or the navigator. If you don't have a map, you might still reach your destination, but it might take you longer than you would have if you had a map in hand. So a proper teacher or a proper guidance will help you to reach your destination, your goal, whatever it is. It could be physical, it could be mental, in a much better way and much sooner, much faster. Otherwise, you might just be traveling round and round in circles. So that is how it is. So you can do with the videos, but my strong recommendation is at least, if not every day, once in a day, you have somebody professional who has done the study, who has been through it, who is experienced, under whom, even if it is online, even if it is not physical, but who can look at your practice and can guide you so that you're doing it properly. So that is how important a teacher or some guidance is in your practice.
You were mentioning...
So it will take you... Sorry.
Go on.
No, so that's what I said. It will take you to your path, whatever you're seeking. It can be physical, it can be mental, de-stressing, whatever. It can happen in a better way and a little more faster than otherwise.
You, as we were talking about this a little while ago, you had brought in the aspect of energy and how each one of us is different, and how you know the depending on what place we are at, influences and inspires our practice. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so when I go to take a class, so if it is a group class or a personal class, I definitely have some sequence or something in my mind, right? That today I'm going to take up this sequence, I'm going to make them do forward bends, or I'm going to make them do back bends, or I'm going to do a full body flow. So definitely whenever, because I know my students, okay, whether it's a personal class or a group class, but there have been so many times that whatever I had thought that this is what I'm going to make my student do, when I go to that student or when I go to that class, when I feel the energy of the class, I have to change the sequence completely. For example, if I have thought I will be taking a very, very heated up cardio kind of a practice, but if I see that the general energy or that student's energy on that day is dropping, and if I force that student to do that, I am not going to get the required result. So I have to listen and see and feel the energy of the student, and I have to change it then and there. So again, if you're just watching YouTube videos, you really don't know, and you will keep pushing yourself. So remember, body needing that rest or mind needing that rest is very, very important. It's a very important aspect which we do not look into. It is like we've got two parts of our nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic nervous system is fight and flight. So when you need a lot of energy in the limbs, when you just want to go ahead and when you want to do, you do a very powerful, a very dynamic practice. But then to balance your system, you need to do once in a while to raise your parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and renew and heal. So if you're not catering to that, the healing aspect, the resting and the renewing aspect, the balance is not there in your practice. And only a teacher can give you that balance, looking at your energy. Okay, today she's feeling very dynamic. Let me give a dynamic practice. Okay, today she's a little under the weather. So let me give her a very restorative, a very restful practice so that at the end, towards the day, towards the night, she gets a nice, good, deep sleep, which will help her to renew, rejuvenate, and also a lot of healing will take place. So that aspect will be missing if you're just doing it constantly, watching some videos or you're doing it online. So that is very important as well.
That's interesting. And that takes us to our next question, which is, how much time do you recommend spending daily for yoga amid schoolwork to obtain beneficial results? And what is the best time to do yoga?
Best time would definitely be morning. But then if morning you don't have the time, and that is what is sort of preventing you to do yoga, anytime it is okay. Just remember that you have to be empty stomach, or else if you have eaten, your food has to be digested. That is very important. Again, because when you eat any kind of food, then what happens is all the energy goes in digesting the food. Your pranic energy goes in digesting the food. But then if you want to do any kind of physical work, you will need energy. So if you do that, then the digestive process will stop somewhere. It will get hindered. So make sure you're not heavy or a full stomach when you do your practice. You can do morning, you can do evening. It'll depend whether you're a morning person or an evening person. Some people are very energetic in the morning. So they like to do yoga in the morning. Some people are very drowsy, very lazy. It takes them about 1.5 hours to really wake up, So for such kind of people, evening practice is also fine. So not recommended during the afternoon because that is when you're going to have your lunch. But then apart from that, morning, evening, anytime is good. But remember also, evening, if you're doing a very dynamic practice, make sure you're doing a very, very nice relaxation shavasana also. Because if you do a very dynamic practice and then you just finish your practice, it might come in your way to get a good sleep because your nervous system is wired. It's like you're having a cup of coffee. So after you have a cup of coffee, it's difficult for you to get to sleep. So if you do a very dynamic practice late evening, make sure you're doing a very beautiful 10 minutes of yoga nidra or any kind of relaxation technique from yoga so that your sleep is not disturbed. Morning, you can just do a very, very dynamic practice. But again, morning when you start, you have to start with a very good warm-up because the body has been rested. The blood circulation has to come. You have to do a very good warm-up. Evening, you might not require a very long warm-up because of the movement throughout the day, your body would be warmed up. So these things, if you keep in mind, you can do yoga safely at any point of time. I think I've covered in a lot of things. So I think that should answer your questions.
That's all very helpful, very valuable information to know if you're looking to get into yoga. You mentioned warm-up. So is there any specific sort of warm-up that people who are about to start should look into doing?
Yeah, very, very important, and something we neglected a lot is warming up the joints. Doing the simple joint movements, it is so boring, isn't it? We would rather do bigger movements, targeting larger muscles, but then these joints are the ones which is giving us the mobility. So even if you don't have time, like even while you're watching TV, if you can just do gentle neck exercises, something very basic, something very simple. And because it is so simple and basic, we tend to overlook the importance of it. It will take you a long way. As young people, we don't realize it, but as we grow older, if we have invested in these small movements, it will help us when we grow older. And also while we are young, because of our postures, the way we are sitting and doing the work all the time, if we are aware and if we are conscious, shoulders back, moving the head side to side, and just looking into these small movements, it will be very helpful. Another aspect in warm-up, and which is very relative to yoga, in yoga, there is a term, there's a quotation which says, you're as young as your spine is healthy. All the nerves come out of the spine, and the spine can do 5 kind of movements. So if you don't have time for anything else, but if you can do these 5 spinal movements, can I show them?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So if you can just do these 5 spinal movements, you can do it anywhere, it will be very good. First one is spinal extension. So just reaching and lengthening the spine. You can do seated, you can do standing. First one is spinal extension. Then are the lateral bends. So in our day-to-day functional movement, we don't do side bends. If we need to reach out for something, we'll turn our body and we'll reach it out. So the side muscles, we don't work. So the lateral bends, and then the twists. Twists are very, very good to send blood, fresh blood into the spine. And then the forward bending. So even if you're working on the system like this, just from time to time, stretch and do a forward bend, and then just do a back bend. So opening up the front of the body. I'll repeat it for convenience. So spinal extension, lateral bends, okay, twistings, forward bending, and back bends. So these are the 5 directions in which the spine can move. So just 10 minutes every day, if you can do all of these 5 movements, you will also feel very fresh. And also for people and for students, if you have a long day, I'm giving a tip here. If you have a very long day and there's like lots and lots to study, and you've got like, you feel like a zombie because there's so much to do and you cannot concentrate. To bring back your concentration, these 5 spinal movements, do it for 5 or 8 minutes, and you will see your concentration and your focus is back.
I will keep that in mind, because I know that not even as a student, but if you're working from 9 to 5 and you're on you have a desk job, sometimes you feel like your back starts to hurt, and it becomes a true long-term problem if that's what your posture is on the daily for the majority of the day. So thank you for those 5 tips.
My pleasure, and it really works.
Yeah, thank you. So as we were talking about career and what it's like for a student to be experiencing stress, I wanted to talk a little bit about yoga as a potential career option for
it is
students.
Brilliant.
Love it. Please tell me.
It is
about
brilliant.
It.
Yeah, sure. Yoga as a career option, I think if anybody is interested in doing yoga, if they enjoy doing yoga, they should definitely look at it as a career option, either a full-time or a part-time. Especially in today's time, it has become very easy. Earlier, at least, you had to go to a studio or you needed some kind of a space to teach people, right? Whether it was an individual or a group of people. But now, because of these online classes, all that you need is a device and your connectivity. And of course, the skills and the technique. So once you've done a training of sorts of yoga, anywhere in the world, so whether you're sitting in the US or you're sitting anywhere, you can connect and you can reach out to so many people, and you can advertise online. There are so many platforms, and you can offer and advertise your classes. And once you start getting it going, and the Insta handles and the Facebook handles and the other mediums, you can keep posting about your journey and things like that. And definitely there is a lot of potential. And even if you teach 1 or 2 students, and even if you take, say, about 2 classes in a week or 3 classes in a week, you can make money. And you can definitely look at it as a career option, because in this time and hour, many of us are looking as yoga as a physical and wellness thing. So it is a very, very lucrative career option. And I think if anybody is interested in yoga and you practice yoga, you should also look into investing your time, energy, and money to get a proper course of training, and then you can look at it as a career option.
And would you say that yoga also offers you, if you were looking into it as a career option, a support system, a network of other, teachers that might be interested and in supporting you in your journey? Do you feel like it's been a very a great environment to be within?
It is a beautiful environment, and there are a lot of people out there. So see, for example, when I started my yoga journey, I started as a single teacher, and then students started growing, and we started sort of branching out, and I realized I cannot be taking all the classes myself. So if I'm taking like 3 classes in a day, and now that the demand increased, it was like 6 classes in one studio, and then we branched, and then we opened more studios. And right now we have about 15 teachers who are working with me. So how each one of us grow, we look out for more and more teachers. And so when I needed more teachers, I started training my own students who were yoga students. So I could see, and the main thing I would look before training them to be a teacher was their passion in yoga. So before, whether they were good or they were not good, if they were passionate, if they showed up on the mat every day, that's when I would talk to them, approach them that, see, I'm looking for a teacher. I'm ready to give you all the training and everything. And then as and when you become a teacher, then whatever the training cost, it can be taken from there. So they didn't have to do any initial investment. And already they used to love what they're doing. Now they are getting more skills, right? And then they're going to utilize the skill to earn money. So it's a win-win situation because I got my teachers, and for them, something which they used to enjoy doing, now they're getting paid for it also. So it was a win-win situation for both. So like this, there are a lot of people around there who are also looking for teachers. And if you're passionate and if you can reach out to them, they would train you maybe at some cost or maybe like the way we did. And it can be very support, and you get a very good support system in this for sure. And for young children, for students, the sky is the limit, I would say. They can explore and do so much.
But consistency is the key.
Consistency is the key, yes. And I know so many people right now, it is not relevant, but I know so many people who loved traveling, but they could not travel because, of course, as a student, they would always have to look into the budget and whether they have the resources and the income and the money. So a lot of them, because they love traveling and they had the yoga knowledge, every place they would go to, they would connect to a yoga studio or somewhere. Throughout the day, they would take 1 hour or 2 hours of yoga class, and the rest of the day they would spend traveling or looking around in the place. So they didn't need to have any extra income. While on travel, they would teach, they would earn money, and they would use that money to explore and see the place. So it can be a very good career option in that respect also. So students who love to travel, think of this and think of this part also.
Great. Thank you so much, Pratibha. That was a truly inspiring and fascinating session. And I'm sure all the students have something really exciting to take back from this session. Thank you so much for joining us for the International Yoga Day 2020 with the India Student Hub.
Absolutely, my pleasure. It was really lovely. And it was lovely to have all this conversation with both of you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
On behalf of the Embassy of India Student Hub, thank you all for joining us, and thank you to our lovely guest speakers for joining us to celebrate the International Day of Yoga 2020. We hope you leave the session feeling inspired and motivated to continue or to begin your yoga journey.
We would like to give a special shout out to our 4 guest speakers today, Pratibha, Rohan, Anjali, and Rajshree. The last few days have been extremely inspiring for both Zara and me, and we look forward to pulling out our yoga mats and getting onto the floor.
Thank you to my yoga teacher for connecting yoga teachers to students all around the world. To learn more about the Embassy of India Student Hub and our mission, please visit our website, ishubus.com, or follow us on Instagram at ishubus. Thank you again, and I'm going to go do some yoga, and I hope all of you will too.